Hey everyone, welcome to the studio. Today I'm going to be talking to you about making sprig molds, how you can make your own sprig molds, how you can use them, and why would you want to? Well, sprig molds are actually one of the easiest way to make a copy of a certain object. So say you have this really funky ring, check that sucker out, right? And you want to take this and turn it into a clay element on a piece you've made. And you don't want to sculpt it, maybe you don't have the sculpting skills to do it, or maybe you want it to be exactly like this. Well, what you can do is you can press it into some wet clay and then fire it and turn it into what's called a bisque mold. There it is. So here's one I made earlier. Bam! Here's the original. And now I can use this to press clay into and put it on anything. And I'm going to show you all how you can take an object, whatever it is, turn it into a bisque mold by pressing it into wet clay, and then you just fire it through your bisque fire, and then you can use it for just about ever. I have some that I've been using for 5 or 6 years, and they're still holding up really well. So let's talk about sprig molds. What can you make a sprig mold out of? Well, you can make it out of anything. So here is a little cameo pin, like the owl ring, and there is a sprig mold of it. So you can see, that light is bright. See? Cute, right? So that would be sweet. Well, here's something fun. This actually was a string of pearls that I pressed into a little slab of clay and fired through, and I used that as a pearl detail on my pieces. So now if I'm making a vase and I want to add this element that's like a draped pearl, I can do that by pressing the clay into this, and then I pop it all out, trim it up, and then I attach it. Something else that I like to use to make sprigs from are molding, pre-made moldings. So this is a wooden mold. See how thin that is? This I got from the hardware store. Here is the sprig from it. So it's just, ta-da! And here it is actually on a piece. So here is why I use sprig molds. I'm going to show you some of my work. So this is a vase that I made. It's thrown in 2 parts and then I added. And then you can see that sprig mold I just showed you. The one I just showed you is right here. Of course, I've carved it out and added some details to it, which I think is important to do. I'll give you, there's another example of that same sprig. I turned it into a handle. So I made that sprig mold and I curled, let me turn it, curled the end down. Pretty awesome. So the thing I like to do when I'm using a commercially made sprig, so, I mean, you don't have to alter them, but I like to alter them. So I'll use these, I'll make my molds, and I'll apply them to the surfaces, and then I'll carve and I'll add some details to change it up a bit. It still references this, like you still see this, but it's different. It's not a copy of it, and that's what makes it mine. And that's what I like to do with all my work. You know, I like to put a bit of me into it, and I think that's important for being original. And I don't have a problem with people saying, oh, well, you know, that was an object you just found. You didn't make that, so the piece isn't really yours. Well, it is mine. No one could say this right here is not mine. I put hours and hours of work into it, and these sprig elements just create a little bit of embellishment that I like. Now, totally could have sculpted a shape like this out of clay and fired it and made a bisque mold from it, but it's out there, so why not use it? And the last thing that is cool to use, so you got found objects, you've got sculptural objects that you've made yourself, you've got nature objects like acorns make great feet, pine cones, there's all kinds of fun things, and you have to experiment with it to see what you're going to get. And the other thing that's out there is fondant molds. So fondant is used for baking and making little embellishments to go on cakes and cupcakes and such. And my daughter, who is just barely getting into clay, you know, she wants to make something, but she has a limited amount of time and a limited amount of skill and also attention. So she's going to be done with making stuff really fast. So this is good for students. You can buy these fondant molds. So this is one she picked out. Yeah, it's skulls. There's another skull. There's a fleur-de-lis, kind of like a dagger. So this is one she made already out of it. So this is a dragon. Let me make sure I have it up right for you guys to see. And there it is. So she made this. As I break her little thing. So this, all right, so she made this Maybe I have to edit this video. This will be the first one I ever edit if I do. She made this from this fondant mold. And these are available anywhere that you can buy baking supplies. And now, here's the really awesome thing for me. She wasn't at all interested in clay. Like, it's a thing we've been struggling with for a long time. I wanted to share something with her and my love of clay, and she wasn't interested at all. So I bought this because she'd been looking at some pendants that were skulls and crossbones, and I thought, well, I bet I can help her out with that. So I bought this, and I brought her to the studio and showed her how it worked. She used it, and then immediately she ran off with it at the other table back there and started cranking these out. I mean, I'm telling you guys, she's got a whole board full of these. I should put her to work. Like, she could have income for me. Child labor laws? Anyhow. All right, so fondant molds are also great for making sprig molds. Oh, this is one I don't have the original. This came off of a fancy antique belt. So that's actually the buckle from a belt. And I'll actually press that out and try that today because I haven't tried this one. Now let's get to making. To make your own mold, all you really need is any kind of clay. It doesn't matter because you're just going to bisque it. You're not going higher than bisque temperature, so there's no issues with, you know, it vitrifying or it cracking or being porous. You want it to be porous. So I have this clay here. This is just my reclaimed clay. It's what I keep in the studio. It's a cone 10 stoneware based on Val Cushings recipe. So if you all know that, this is what I make. All my reclaim gets put in. I make that recipe, and I usually add 3 5-gallon buckets of my reclaim to that recipe. And my reclaim is anything from porcelain to stoneware, whatever's in the studio. So I just got a lump of this, and when you're making a sprig, you have to think about the object you're pressing in, and you have to be sure you have enough clay to cover it. What do I mean? Well, here's a perfect example. Here is a grenade. I'm gonna stand up so you guys can see it. Ta-da! That I sculpted, and then I pressed it into clay. Now look how thick that clay had to be in order for this grenade to fit down in. If I had a small slab of clay, this would have broken it and not worked. And after I press the sprig in, I do trim the edges to get rid of excess clay, because you don't need that excess clay. And this is another fun thing. Your sprigs are gonna shrink. They're gonna shrink in the bisque firing, and then when you use them, they're gonna shrink. So your original object, this is the original object. This is the sprig, right? Here is the bisque piece. What? Yeah, here's the bisque, and then here's the final. So it just goes tiny, tiny, tiny. I'm gonna lay these out here so you guys can see. Original, we'll do it here. Original, sprig mold, bisque piece, finished. So it's like, doo. That's not good enough. We need to make this better. I want you guys to really see this. Hold on, you're coming down here. Doo. See? This might be good too. All right, so you can see how much they shrink. Basically, original, finished product. What is that? That's a chunk gone. That's a ton gone. Anyhow, that's start to finish so you could see. And these I make pendants out of. These are my grenades. Ooh, grenade pendants. They're pretty awesome. All right, let's make a sprig. And as you guys know, I don't edit my videos, or maybe you don't know, but now you do. I don't edit my videos because I don't know how, and I don't have time. That's why. If I had more time in my life, I totally would do it. And if it was easy, then okay. So if somebody's watching this out there, so you guys out there watching this right now on YouTube, if you know an easy way to edit videos, please, 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 please send me a little note in the comments section. And you know what? Why not? While we're here talking about the comment section, why don't you leave me a reply in the comment section about what you felt about this video, what else you'd like to see me do, and why not subscribe? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe. It's easy, it's free. All right, let's get to making sprigs. I bought the other day in the hardware store this. Pretty fancy. This would go on a fireplace, and I like the design. It's definitely my style. And then I found this at the hobby store. It's a picture frame. Oh, look at that. But I think it's really cool. I love these designs. So I'm thinking I can make a sprig and cut off these sections. So that's the other thing you can do when you're making sprigs. It doesn't have to be the whole object. It can be a section of the object. So that's what we're gonna do right now for you. I'm gonna show you how to make this, and then I'm gonna show you on another piece how to put sprigs on. So this is like a 3 for a video because I'm talking about using them, talking about making them, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. So it's like win, win, win. Ooh, we have to open this. I do have scissors, but this is sealed really, really well. And if I knew how to put music in, now would be the time. Ooh, I did find a really great royalty-free site for music. So those out there who are interested, it's called, this is a little off track, but I think we can handle it, bensound.com, bensound.com, Ben Sound. Pretty cool. And this is one I found that I like a lot. Tell me what you think. That's good cutting out music, don't you think? This is really sealed. All right, we're gonna try the knife. That does it. So these are vacuum sealed. So Ben Sound doesn't mind you using their music in the videos, in any video you make. Just write music provided by bensound.com. That's it. Woohoo! It's like wings. Cool, cool. All right, so this is not big enough, obviously, so I need to make it bigger. And I have, you know, I could roll it with a rolling pin, but I think I'm just gonna throw it like I'm doing. So you see, you just twist and throw until you get it where you need it. Woohoo! I'm gonna cut some excess off. I wanna leave enough to press. So this is a huge, huge chunk. Look how thick this is a big chunk of clay. And I don't worry too much about smoothing the surface. I'm already working on a smooth slab mat, which keeps any texture out of it. And there'll be a little bit of texture on the surface, and I can just smooth that out after. The other thing that's gonna happen is I'm gonna make the sprig. I'm gonna then eventually fire it, and I'll press my clay in. Well, when I pull that out, it's still gonna need some refinement, so I don't worry about any little imperfections in it. All right, let's press this sucker in. I'm just gonna evenly press, and you can see the clay squish out around it. All right, I'm gonna get an end up. I'm just gonna pry it. Oh, it's really in there. There. Oh, it came out really nice. You guys see that? You see how awesome that came out? I don't want to lift it up off the bat. Let me grab a bat. So that was the end of the ukulele song. It didn't last that long, did it? That was pretty cool. So normally I would try to do these on a bat or a board after, and I would try not to move them, because every time you move them, you can distort the surface, which means when it goes in the kiln, it could bow. And you won't notice it now, but you'll notice it after you fire or even as it's drying. And then if it bows and you go to make something out of it, whatever you're making is going to have that bow in it too. So here is the sprig I just made from that object right there. So this will make a clay version of this that I can then apply to pieces. And I don't have to use this whole thing. You know, I can press the sprig in and cut a section off. And I'll actually demo that in a second. So, ta-da! I'm going to let this set up a bit. I'm going to take a little off. I don't want to take too much because I don't want to get close to the sprig because you can distort it. But this clay right now is wet and easy to reuse, so I'm going to take as much off as I can. I mean reuse, like I can just wedge it and put it right back in the bin and throw with it. If I wait for it to dry, then I got to reclaim and all that. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is this picture frame. So let's do this quickly too. So it's going to work the same way as the wooden one, but I want to show you this little trick that I use. So the wooden ones, when you press it in the clay, wood releases nicely from clay. It's not really a problem. This is a resin material and it's going to stick to the clay. And I need to use, hold on, a material, sound effects provided by me, that will release it. So I use non-stick cooking spray as my release agent. And everybody has it, so you can just go in your kitchen and steal it. And, you know, try to remember to bring it back so when you're cooking you have it, because I always forget to bring mine back. So what I've done is I just have one for the studio and one for the house. Easy. All right, I think I can use all the reclaimed clay, this lump right here. I'm going to quickly wedge. And I don't worry a ton about bubbles or any of that for this particular application. You know, I'm just making a sprig mold. It's not anything fancy. I've never had a problem with a sprig mold blowing up in the kiln. Or, did I put you guys too low? Hold on. Come back up. There. That's better. So I've never had a sprig blow up. I've never had a blowout or anything like that. Let me just throw this a bit. So rule of thumb is it has to be at least as thick as the object. I prefer it almost double the thickness of the object. So that looks pretty close. I'm going to actually press it up on the board so I don't have to move it. I try to get it even slab to start with. You can use thickness strips and roll out a slab if you want to. I don't have a reason why. Maybe just because I just don't. I don't find it necessary. And then I'll do a quick little sprig on a small object because you don't have to do this much work for small objects. Ooh, almost forgot a key component. So resin or any plastic, any metal, anything that could stick to the clay. Just going to hit it with a quick squirt of non-stick cooking spray. Get it in there good. It won't hurt the clay. And I'm going to press this down. I haven't done this one yet, so I have no idea what's going to happen. Ooh, it made a squishy sound. All right. Boy, that's a thick one, so I'm not trying to... Ooh, I got a little mini impression. Okay, that's awesome. Oh, that is amazing. Check out all the detail that came out in that because I used that resin. I mean the non-stick cooking spray. Because I used resin. No, because I used non-stick cooking spray. It let the clay go in every single crevice in there. Like every single one of these was impressed. I'm impressed. I hope you all are impressed. All right, now let's do a small thing. Let's do a small thing. What do I have floating around? I don't really have many small things floating around right here. I was looking in the studio this morning. I couldn't find anything. I was like, how is this possible? I'm going to do another one of those cameos. So I'm just going to cut a bit of clay. Here's my cameo pin. Here's my clay. I'm going to hit the cameo with a... Don't hit the cameo. Spray the cameo. And then this is pretty easy. Squish. And then it pops right out. Pins are great because the pin back right here gives you a little handle. You can really hang on to it. And then check out the detail on her face. Can you see? Try to hold it so you guys can see. That came out. So anything that you have that's really fine with lots of detail, you can actually get a clay impression of. Now the other option I could do with this, and it would work just as well, as if I threw an object and then I sprayed this and pressed it in, but that's stamping. That's not what we're doing. But you could stamp if you didn't want to do the sprig process. I was going to do one more, wasn't I? Was I? I think I was. Oh, let's do a section. So if you want to do a section of a bigger object. I did already spray this once. I'm going to spray it again, just this section. So I'm doing this little top corner right there. I'm just going to lay this. And when you do small things, sometimes you can just do a sprig like this. You can hold it in your hands and just press it around. And I'm just squishing it. You can kind of see, just using that, squishing the clay. Ooh, here, I'll let you guys see the release. Right there. So this section now is really what I'm after. So I have this really great element that I can use in pieces down the line. This was from a resin picture frame from a hobby store. in the clearance aisle, my favorite place to hang out. Okay, so now let's move on to actually putting on a sprig. And I'm going to quickly wipe down my work surface because this is stoneware clay. I'm going to be using a porcelain, and I don't want to mix the two. And lucky, I was prepared, and I brought a clean, damp sponge so that I can wipe off my work area and my hands. Good. All right, so I want to add, oh, let me show you this other sprig. So here's another way to use sprigs. The base where a handle joins and the top. So the two places that handles join, it's kind of nice to add a sprig. So this is a green piece that hasn't been through the kiln yet. That'll go in this next week. Okay, so here's a little cup that I made the other day. I was going to pat the bottom because I think it's just a flat bottom, simple little cup. And this is porcelain. This is Laguna 16 mid-range porcelain. And I'm going to add to it a little sprig. And it's not going to be super fancy. I don't know. I say that now. It could get super fancy. I never know. So often in the studio, my plan is like, all right, I'm just going to do a simple little thing. I'm going to add one little sprig and that's it. And then it ends up like that piece right there. Like, that piece is so over the top, I can't even. But that's what happens. Okay. So for joining sprigs, you need some slip. So I just have some of my porcelain scraps from throwing and some water and my serrated rib. My little Dolan 220S knife, which is actually one of my favorites. And something to sprig, something to use for my sprig. So I have my molds. Handily enough, I've got a big bag of porcelain just sitting over here. So I'm going to do a slab first. It's going to be a very thin slab, really thin, like 1/8 of an inch thin. So you don't need a lot of clay to do sprigs. You do, however, need a wire cutter. There it is. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off the top. Now this is straight from the bag. I've done nothing to it other than use part of it for something else. And I'm not going to wedge it. I'm not going to worry about it. It's when you cut into it, and you could see if there was air bubbles. This is from the factory. I know a lot of people will be like, oh no, you must wedge everything. You can. You can wedge everything if you want to. I don't want to. Did you guys? Shh. I don't want to. So I'm going to wipe off this. This is my porcelain slab roller. It's very fancy. I got it in a department store or a home goods store for like $3. I don't know. These wooden ones aren't very expensive. And I bought a whole bunch years ago. Maybe they've gone up a tiny bit because I was teaching an after school program and the kids loved it because it's much nicer to roll out your slabs and throw it with kids. All right, so the porcelain thing you want to do when you're adding a sprig to a piece is you want the piece and the clay you're going to add to be at similar dryness stages. And it's not always possible, I know, but especially with porcelain, they will crack like crazy if you don't get them about at the same place. Now I think I want this one. So this one started out as a wooden mold, just like this. This is a different, you know, let me grab it off the counter. Boom, this. So this was one of those. It was just a little different shape. So I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna show you how to do that. That's still thick. I can throw it, but it's getting a little thin, and throwing thin slabs, they sometimes like to tear. And, you know, I don't really want my slab to tear. You can throw a little. That's not doing too bad. See, it's easy to flip and just kind of throw. I need a job at a pizza restaurant. Darn. No, I think the twirling would be my drawback. I don't think I could do that. So this is about 1/8 of an inch thick. You can make them thicker, you can make them thinner. Now I have used sprigs to make handles. When I do that, I like to make them thicker. Like this one, it's a little bit thicker, but when I actually use, like I've used this shape itself as the handle. So I made a really thick version of this. I actually have it in left and right sides so that I can attach the two together so I have a three-dimensional form. So it doesn't have to just stick on the side. You can actually use it as a handle. I could show you guys. You want to see? Another side track. Let me grab it. Little intermission music while I go grab the pottery. So here is a handle from a sprig. Now this is decorative piece. This is not a functional piece. But you could totally use it to make functional work. Like this piece is going to be all gilded gold and it's kind of going to be over the top when it's done. But this is a sprig. That's a sprig. As is all the pieces down here on the base. Wow, that light is bright. And these right here. It's kind of like some intense lighting. Interrogation room. Yes, and what were you doing on the night of the 26th? All right, so we're gonna use this mold and I am just gonna lay, all right, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about my life lessons that I've learned and failed miserably at things. So I have found if you lay the mold onto the clay and press it into the clay, if there is any slight unevenness in your mold, you'll crack it. You'll crack your mold, you'll break it, and then all that work is gone. So what I do lay the mold on it, but just to do a rough cut. And so you can see I left quite a bit around the outside, but that's because I don't want to deal with all this excess clay. And then, because it was flipped over, the shape is actually in the reverse, right? So I'm going to use this side and lay it on. Come up a little bit more. And then I'm going to press, I'm going to use my rolling pin. I don't know what this is like doing. Like I can't compare it to making anything in the world, like in the world of not clay. I just roll it along and crush it. Oh, making raviolis. There you go. So if you have a ravioli mold and you lay the dough in it, you roll over the mold and it cuts out your ravioli, for those of us who make ravioli. And there it is. Ta-da! So it's really flexible right now because the clay is wet. If it was drier or thicker, it would be stiffer. So I'm gonna take, put this out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. So now that I've done that, I have some excess clay I need to trim away. So I just go along with this knife. You could use an X-Acto, but the blades on X-Actos are really, really sharp. And I have a habit of stabbing myself. Not good. So this, you can kind of do this and it doesn't go into your skin. With an X-Acto, it's gonna go in. I found that out. Not intentionally, mind you. All right, so this has all these little fiddly bits that I have to go through and cut around. And I'm okay with that, like that's good. That's what makes this fancy. And it also has a lot of detail that I'm gonna be able to incorporate into this piece. You know, I'll be able to do some fun stuff, I think, design-wise. So this is what I have. Little tiny bit. See, it's really flexible because it's really, really wet. And that's good, you want that. So now I have to decide where I'm gonna put it on the cup. Now this cup here is still it's not even leather hard. I threw this cup, let me get my sponge. Where'd I put my sponge? Oh, it's over there. Excuse me for a sec, gotta grab it. I threw this cup 2 days ago. It was covered in the studio. I just trimmed it this morning. So it is not leather hard. It was actually a little wet to trim. But when I'm putting sprigs on things, I like to trim wet. I found if I wait till they're leather hard, it's too late. Like it's too dry, it will crack. No matter what you do, it's gonna crack. All right, so I'm gonna be adding, this is a cup, like a juice cup, whiskey cup maybe. So I wanna add my detail down here on the base. And when I was trimming it, I thought about that and I left this little detail so that I can start my sprig just coming up. And I'm just gonna do a little swirly thing going around. But you know, with your sprigs, whatever you're doing, go for it. I think it's gonna go this way, like that. All right, because I know this design, I've used this sprig on a few pieces, I know how it looks. So you take your sprigged piece that you have ready, line it up where you want it to go, I want mine to go here, like this. So you can see, can you see? Now you can see, I have it here. Do I want it like that? Do I want this? I want this to curve up a little more. So you'll have to play with your designs, whatever you're making and whatever you're putting on there. And it could be something really simple. You don't have to do ornate, crazy things. All right. Oh, that's kind of cute. Hi. It's a little smile, sort of. Maybe we won't do that. That's a little too much for me. Okay. So once you get this placed, let's come up a little higher on the side. Yep, that's it. So once I get it placed, you want to know where to slip and score everything. So that's what I'm going to do with it. This is going to be a bit of a simple cup. If I sprig this whole thing, what's going to happen is when the person goes to hold it, there's going to be all these bumps and stuff, and it might not feel good in the hand, and that's still a consideration for the work. It's a very important consideration for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put sprigs in a few places, but not the whole thing. Like this might be the only sprig I put on this cup. That might do it. That might be enough fancy for this particular cup. Maybe. Let me think. Okay, so in order to attach your sprig, I'm going to take my knife, and I am just going to do, you could use a pin tool for this, a very light, ooh, stay on the cup. I'm trying to hold this so you guys can see. Maybe I could do it like this. You want to do a very light line so you know what you're scoring, and so you don't go all over your piece and make a crazy mess. I mean, you can always go back and smooth it out afterwards, you know, but that falls in the realm of more work to do later. Nobody wants that, right? Okay, so I have scored the edge. Let me pull this off so you can see right there where that's got to go. And I'm going to slip and score both sides. Now with porcelain, I know there's a lot of people out there don't want to slip their porcelain wet and bad and crack and all that stuff happening, and it does sometimes happen. The key is not to make it soaking wet. You know, I'm scoring it and it's wet, but it's not sopping, dripping wet. So that's that side all scored up. And I'm going to do the same to this side here. Just hold it in my hand. You can see how thin these are. You could actually go thicker if you want to. It's your choice. You go thinner. Depends what you're doing. Because this is a profile of a cup, I don't want to make it so thick that it sticks out really far. Okay. Now to stick it on. So I've got both parts slipped, right? And you got to find a point that you're going to start joining. So what's going to happen is as I press this on, it's gonna squish it a little bit, and it's gonna change the shape. That light is so intense. I wonder if it's better if I turn it off. Hold on. We're doing a little test. Sorry, bear with me, everybody. Light off. And if this, is that better detail-wise? I think it might be, but it's not as like good for everything else. Anyhow, tell me in the comments. This is all trial and error. We're all learning here, so tell me what you think. Oh, no, it still works good with the light. No, we're keeping the light on. Okay. All right, let's stick this on. So I like to start at the bottom, if I can get my hand out of the way so you guys can see, and just drape it on so it's in the approximate area where it's going to go. And then now I'm going to use my finger and I'm just going to press, and you can see it's squishing it a bit. So it's going to distort the shape a little bit. And I just make sure that as it does press out, I'm keeping a nice form that I'm happy with. And when you get to the, you have to hold it from the inside too, because what happens is it'll distort your cup. And I don't want a distorted cup. So as I'm doing this, the slip is squishing together. You can feel it squish together when you do this, so you'll know. And I try to put my thumb and do this rolling action. See how I'm rolling a bit up and down the cup? That's squeezing it, and I'm making sure there's no air bubbles caught in there, and that every single part of this sprig is joined to this cup. Okay, so that sprig's on there. The sprig is on. And the next step for me is I go back with a damp sponge, And I'm just gonna smooth out any excess slip that has squished out the sides. That's where you have problems with cracking, is all that excess slip that has squeezed out the sides. And then I will just set this aside, let it dry, and then I'll come back to this piece probably tomorrow, maybe later today, it depends, and I will clean up the edges with a Pastel wipeout tool, which is one of these guys. Let me show you. So they make these. I've used these a lot. If you follow me, you've seen me use these before. And I will just take it. This one is a little stiff, and this is very wet, so it'll make a very noticeable line in my piece. And I don't really want that, so I'm gonna just try to go light and see if I can give you guys the gist of it all. So if you look, this end's pointy, so I can use it as a pointer. So if you look right here, you can see some slip, and you can see where it's joined. It's a little uneven. I'm gonna go in, see if I can do it really nicely. And I'm just lightly touching. I'm cleaning up that edge. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's nice. That's what we want. I'm gonna do it again. And then go back in. So you can see that nice edge that I have right there. Ta-da! All right, so that is making and attaching sprigs. And with the free bonus at the beginning of why you want to use sprigs and how to make a sprig and what to make sprig from. All right, so that's it. That's doing sprigs. That's the whole thing in a video. You guys can tell me what you think in the comments, and I will get back to you, of course, as always. Just gonna fiddle with this for the next 5 minutes. No, I'm gonna have to put it down and leave it be. So I think that's it for this cup. I could put a lot more on, but I think I'm gonna, oh, I don't know. Now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that could be cute on it too. Oh, that could be nice actually. And then you can still hold it from the back, and that would be the front. So here, a little extra something. So anyhow, I will have to deal with that later. We will see what I do. I will share it, I'm sure. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much. Like I said already a few times, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and give me a thumbs up for this video and follow. If you, have any suggestions for other things you'd like to see me to demonstrate, or questions about the work or anything at all, just give me a holler. Let me know. All right, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time in the studio. Bye. Mwah.